The first 6 months of Donald Trump's second term brought a whole bunch of stuff that changed the country. Thousands of people lost their jobs, the US lost trust from our allies, ICE raids spun out of control, the military was used on protesters, prices jumped from chaotic tariffs, but hey, it's all worth it if we get less DEI stuff, right? Anyway, now let's get to the reason why you clicked this video. I'm pretty sure that you haven't sat down and actually ranked the worst things that Trump has done over these past 6 months, and really, why would you? So I figured, let's make AI do it for us. But here's the problem, YouTube has a 10-hour limit on videos, so we'll just have to compromise. I'm gonna ask AI to pick the 6 worst moves that Trump's made in the first 6 months back in office. Not just list them, but explain why each one lands where it does, and why it's worse than the one before it. So all you've got to do is watch this video until the end to see what ChatGPT ranked as the absolute worst. And before we get into that, if you want to support the channel, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and share this video with someone who might like it. And definitely drop your own top 6, or at least top 3 worst Trump moves down in the comments. Scroll through, see what others are saying, and keep the conversation going. Thanks a lot, and now let's get straight to the chat. And here we are. To keep things moving, I already had it do all the research ahead of time, so it's all up to date, and you can see exactly what I typed in, and that the research is already done. So let's not waste any more time and get straight into it. ChatGPT needs to be clear, straightforward, totally unbiased, with no sugarcoating, no fluff, none of that. And most importantly, it needs to explain why each one ended up in the spot that it did. All right, all set, so let's kick it off with number 6. And here we go. Number 6, One Big Beautiful Bill, gutting Medicaid and healthcare. Trump's so-called One Big Beautiful Bill turned out to be anything but beautiful for millions of Americans. This sweeping legislation didn't just make the 2017 tax cuts permanent, it expanded them, delivering even more breaks to the wealthiest Americans and large corporations. But those tax breaks came with a cost. The bill slashed funding for vital social programs, including Medicaid, food assistance, housing support, and disability services. It also imposed strict new work requirements that many struggling Americans simply can't meet. The Congressional Budget Office estimates nearly 11 million people will lose health coverage over the next decade as a direct result of this bill. Seniors, low-income families, and people with disabilities are expected to suffer the most. The bill's effects are already being felt in real time. Clinics are closing, state programs are overwhelmed, and families are being forced to choose between health care and rent. Why it's number 6? Because it's brutal and far-reaching. It's not the most shocking or aggressive move on the list. It didn't break laws or shred norms. It was passed through Congress and signed into law. But the impact is undeniable. It pulled away basic support from people who need it most, not out of necessity, but by choice. It's a cold, calculated shift in priorities, one that hits millions where it hurts most. And unlike executive orders, this one is locked in. It's cruel in a quiet way. And that's exactly why it belongs here. Alright, got it. And honestly, I'm pretty sure we've already got separate videos on pretty much everything that's going to show up in today's list. For example, here's one where chat breaks down the bill itself and the whole Musk-Trump feud that came with it. So you can check that out on the channel page once we're done here. Alright, how about number 5? Number 5, launching chaotic tariffs that hurt Americans. Trump's decision to impose sweeping new tariffs hit the economy like a hammer. Under the label of reciprocal trade, his administration slapped a 25% tariff on foreign cars and raised import taxes on other goods by as much as 45%. The idea, he claimed, was to protect American jobs and punish countries he said were ripping us off. But what actually happened was a chaotic mess. The rollout was rushed, full of legal gray areas, and caught both businesses and allies off guard. Countries hit by the tariffs struck back fast, targeting American exports with their own taxes. Prices for everyday goods, cars, food, appliances shot up. Companies scrambled to reroute supply chains and rework budgets. Farmers lost critical international markets, small businesses faced increased costs they couldn't absorb, and through it all, Trump framed the economic pain as patriotic sacrifice, even as families across the country felt the squeeze. Why it beats the Medicaid cuts? Because this didn't just hit one part of the population, it hit everyone. Working-class families paid more at the store, businesses lost stability, allies lost trust, and foreign competitors gained ground. This wasn't careful economic planning, it was a political move dressed up as strategy. Unlike the Medicaid cuts, which targeted specific programs, this move rattled the entire economy. It was reckless, costly, and unnecessary, and it left American families footing the bill for a trade war they didn't ask for. Yeah, the tariffs definitely deserve a spot here, and yeah, I've got a whole playlist on tariffs you can check out on the channel page as well. But alright, let's keep it going with number 4. Number 4. Pardoning over 1,500 January 6 rioters. In one of the most brazen acts of his second term, Trump issued blanket pardons for over 1,500 people convicted or charged for their roles in the January 6 Capitol attack. He didn't treat it as a serious crime, he framed it as patriotism. He referred to the rioters as hostages, praised them at rallies, and even brought a few on stage. Federal prosecutions were halted, sentences were wiped clean. In many cases, pardoned individuals returned to far-right circles as symbols of loyalty, not lawbreakers. It wasn't about forgiveness or justice reform, it was a calculated message. Violence on behalf of Trump is not only acceptable, it's honorable. This move didn't just undermine the legal process, it rewrote the story of January 6 in real time. The people who stormed the Capitol with zip ties, bear spray, and threats were no longer criminals. They were heroes in the eyes of the sitting president. Why it beats the tariffs? Because this goes deeper than bad policy. It's a direct hit to the very idea of accountability. You can fix tariffs, you can recover from trade disruption, but this tells future extremists that as long as they serve the right political cause, the law doesn't apply. It weakens courts, intimidates prosecutors, and signals that political violence has a place in American life, if it's on Trump's side. That makes it more dangerous than anything purely economic. To be honest, with everything going on, I almost forgot about that decision. But yeah, that was absolutely one of the worst moves so far. Okay, we're about to find out what ChatGPT picked for the top 3 worst moves, but before we move on, take a moment to hit that like button if you're enjoying the video, and double check that you're subscribed. Your engagement means everything, so if you want to support the channel or just say thanks, this is the best way to do it. Alright, thanks in advance, and now let's get to the top 3. So, let's not waste any more time. Here's what landed at number 3. Number 3. Wrecking U.S. foreign policy. Trump's second term foreign policy has been a non-stop series of confrontations, threats, and strategic backslides. He again pressured NATO allies with ultimatums, warning that the U.S. might not defend countries that don't pay their fair share, remarks that rattled Europe and emboldened Russia. He froze military aid to Ukraine during a crucial moment in its war with Putin and publicly downplayed the threat of Russian aggression. Meanwhile, his administration slapped new tariffs on longtime allies like Canada, Germany, and France, further souring trade relationships. He also pushed to eliminate large portions of U.S. aid funding, cutting support for global health, education, and development programs. His public praise of authoritarian leaders and open disdain for diplomatic norms sent a clear message. America was retreating from its leadership role on the world stage. For allies, it became harder to trust U.S. commitments. For adversaries, it's open season. Why it beats the pardons? Because this doesn't just weaken one institution, it weakens America's position in the world. Pardoning rioters was a disgrace to justice, but wrecking foreign policy invites chaos on a global scale. It puts U.S. troops, diplomats, and allies at greater risk, and unlike domestic legal issues, damaged alliances take decades to repair. When America becomes unpredictable and self-serving, it opens the door for other powers, especially authoritarian ones, to step in and fill the void. That's not just short-term damage, that's a global shift. All right, wrecking foreign policy comes in at number 3. Well, fair enough. Not much to add here, so let's move on to number 2. Number 2. Military on protesters. Trump's decisions to deploy active-duty U.S. troops against peaceful protesters was one of the clearest signs of authoritarian overreach in his second term. In several cities, military vehicles rolled through neighborhoods, helicopters hovered low to scatter crowds, and troops in full gear stood off against citizens holding signs, not weapons. Protesters were tear-gassed, corralled, and in some cases detained, not because they posed a threat, but because they dared to speak out. This wasn't law enforcement responding to violence, it was a show of power aimed at silencing dissent. The scenes were jarring, more like something you'd expect in an authoritarian state than in the United States. The message was unmistakable: protest against the president and you'll face soldiers. It blurred a vital line between policing and military force and sent shockwaves through communities already grappling with distrust in government. Why it beats foreign policy sabotage? Because this didn't just harm America's image abroad, it attacked freedoms at home. Sending troops against citizens isn't foreign policy, it's a test run for domestic repression. You can fix diplomatic ties, you can rejoin treaties, but once a president starts using military power to suppress free speech, it reshapes the relationship between people and government. That fear doesn't fade quickly. This wasn't just a bad decision, it was a warning sign of something darker. Oh, yeah, sure. To be honest, I actually expected that one to be in the top spot. But now I know this might be a bit annoying, but just so you know, there are at least 2 videos on the channel about the LA protest, so you can check those out anytime that you want. Alright, now it's time to find out what made it all the way to number 1. And here we go. Number 1. Handling Epstein files, DOJ hiding it. Trump's Department of Justice made a calculated effort to keep the Epstein story buried. Documents were heavily redacted, key names blacked out, lawsuits quietly delayed, and media access stonewalled. Freedom of Information Act requests sat ignored for months. Internal memos revealed officials intentionally coordinated to slow down exposure, reroute investigations, and protect high-profile individuals. This wasn't about shielding victims or ensuring due process, it was about shielding power, and not just political allies, but figures from finance, media, and even foreign royalty. The justice system twisted itself to protect the elite and did so under direct political pressure. This wasn't just incompetence, it was intent. The DOJ didn't stumble through the Epstein case, they worked to bury it. And with Trump's own past ties to Epstein, it raised the possibility that they weren't just shielding elites, they might have been protecting the president too. The result? It looked like an effort to silence survivors, shield the powerful, and leave the public asking whether justice in America only applies to the powerless. Why it's number 1? Because this is corruption in its purest form. It's not a botched policy or a diplomatic disaster, it's a total failure of justice. When the system protects predators instead of exposing them, it sends a clear message. The rules only apply to regular people, and once that trust is gone, you don't get it back. You can recover from bad economics or foreign blunders, but a justice system that picks winners and losers based on wealth and connections, that's a moral collapse, and it defines Trump's second term more than anything else. And there you have it. Pretty fair list, don't you think? Let me know in the comments if you agree with the rankings. And don't forget to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that join button if you want to become a member and support the channel directly. And since we wrapped up with the Epstein files, you should definitely check out this video next, where I asked Grok who might actually be on the Epstein client list, and yeah, it gave the names. Thanks for watching, click on that video, and I'll see you over there in just a moment.